Call the order. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017, and this is the start of Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman McGann is a little under the weather, so we wish him well.
Moment of silence for Paul Tabor.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, we want to have a moment of silence for Paul Tabor. Paul was a decorated police officer, retired police officer for the Hanson Police Department for 24 years. So just have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, announcements. Hanson Community Christmas is accepting applications until November 30th. Applications are available at Town Hall and online at www.hanson-mass.gov. Monetary donations are always accepted at Hanson Community Christmas, P.O. Box, 163, Hanson, Mass. For more information, please email hansoncommunitychristmas@gmail.com or call Jenna Gomes, 781-718-0891. The Veterans Agent's office will be closed from December 1st through December 11th. Please plan your business accordingly. Tom McCarthy, Whitman and Abington's Veterans Agent, will be available for emergencies. Whitman Hanson will, which provides primary, secondary,
Tertiary.
thank you, opiate abuse and overdose prevention resources to the community, will be meeting Tuesday, December 5th at 6 p.m. at the Hanson Library. The meeting is open to the public. Tax possession auction will take place Friday, December 8th in the Selectmen Meeting Room. Registration begins at 9:30 a.m. The auction will be conducted by Strategic Auction Alliance of Braintree. For more information on the 6 parcels, please call 877-426-8175 or go to their website, www.strategicauctionalliance.com. The annual tree lighting will take place on Saturday, December 9th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Santa will be on hand to assist with the lighting of the tree. Local restaurants will be offering samples of their food. A fireworks display will cap off the evening. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: 200th Anniversary, Agricultural, Capital Improvement, Community Preservations, Disabilities, Elder Affairs, Energy, Finance, Memorial Day Observance, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committees. Applications for appointments and information on the committees is available on the town website, www.hanson-mass.gov. Upcoming meetings: PCH Reuse Committee, Wednesday, November 29th, 4 p.m. 200th Anniversary, Thursday, November 30th, 7 p.m. Cultural Council, Thursday, November 30th, 6 p.m. McCowan School Reuse, Thursday, November 30th, 6:30. The Whitman Hanson RAAC, Monday, December 4th, 6 p.m. at the high school. Selectmen meeting Tuesday, December 5th at 7 p.m. and also Tuesday, December 19th at 7 p.m. FinCom Tuesday, December 5th, 7 p.m. Historical Wednesday, December 13th, 6 p.m. School Committee Wednesday, December 13th at the high school. CPC Wednesday, December 13th, 7 p.m. And that's it for our meetings. So, new business. The first thing we have is Bob Hayes and the school committee to update us on the McQuon transition and request for support for transition expenses and various school needs. Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have quite a few of the members of the transition team here today. I'm going to try to shorten the version because, as you can see, it's fairly lengthy. So we've been taking due diligence getting this project done. As you know, it's not easy. We'll be closing a school and transitioning the kindergarten students, the pre-K students, to the high school. We're going to be retrofitting parts of the high school. The driveway, as you see it out behind the building, is going to be changed. There's going to be a small rotary at the front to transition better. There's going to be a dedicated door for the students, and they're obviously going to be in that part of the building that you see now. If you walk straight into the office and straight by the office and headed down towards the back, they're going to be in the back corner of that building. We'll be retrofitting that. We're going to be starting that retrofitting soon. The plans are all underway currently, and it's a fairly extensive reconstruction, but it's something that needs to be done. There's going to be dedicated areas for those students, including you have to change bathrooms, because you can imagine the high school students and little ones have to have different style bathrooms and different heights and different stalls and all kinds of different things, and it does come at a cost. But we're moving right along with that. So then, talking about transitioning the other students into the Indian Head School, that's also going to take some renovation work. We have to tear up some rooms, make some new bathrooms, change where they're going to be. The second graders, if you come in the current Indian Head lobby, as you see it today, on the side of the building, not the front of the Memorial Hall, but on the current front of the building, which is actually the side. The second grade's going to be on to your left. There's going to be a few new bathrooms there. But this is not an addition to any one of these buildings. This is retrofitting rooms that we currently have in the building. Right at the present, obviously, we're going to have to put in some playground space, and we're going to have to change some of the driveways. So as you see the horseshoe come in off of School Street now, that's going to be changed possibly as we're speaking. They're putting together a plan now because there's a playground group that has to, style it and design it to fit into where it's going to go on that particular piece of property. There's probably going to be some fencing, but none of that's etched in stone 100%, but it's getting there. And we're going to have preliminary estimates for all of this to come to you and give you some sort of an idea what the figures are going to be. We should have a better grasp on the exact cost right around the December 13th meeting to give you a better idea, so I'll be more than happy to come here again. The least amount of the cost, thanks, is going to be transitioning one grade from Indian Head to Hanson Middle. The building itself is 19 years old. These kids are going to be in the 5th grade, so they're going to transition there very easy. It should be very, very minimal issues up there because, as you know, last year, to safety and security of the building, we changed the way the front entrance entered, so you have to go directly to the office. You're locked in a space to where you can't get into the building. So the transitioning there should be pretty much without any type of a problem. We have been having meetings with parents, with students, with teachers, because they're going to be going to different locations. And when people get used to working in a certain location or going to a certain location, whether you're this big or this big, it's a change. Right. And change isn't always welcome, but it is always a change. So we have been meeting with students and meeting with parents, and there's going to be more meetings, and there's a transition committee now on board to keep all of this for any parents that have anything, and we will be posting meetings. I will be coming back to this board so people can understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. We want everybody to try to do it without any fear or, people transition and you talk about change and it gets a little blurry, so if you have any questions, we have a whole team, the superintendent's here, the assistant superintendent, our business manager, our maintenance manager, they're all here. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask.
Bob, up at the high school with bringing the pre-K up there, you said there was going to be some construction.
Yes.
How will that affect the students that are at the high school?
Okay, well, what we're doing presently, and Ernie might be able to answer this, but we just all came from a meeting. Some of this is going to start during February vacation, and the changes are going to be minimal because we're going to close that end of the building, move technology upstairs, and do some of this behind the scenes so there'll be no big change or any impact on the students that are currently at the high school. Because obviously we realize that, and most of this is going to be done in the summer. But you preliminarily have to get some of this basic structuring done during the vacations. So we're going to keep it minimalistic at best to try and impact any of the students.
Okay, great.
So, how many classrooms are we talking about taking over at the high school for the pre-K?
5.
5, okay. I know you don't have costs, but do we know, are the high school costs going to totally be borne by Hanson? Okay, but I assume the Indian Head would.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
The split between, to give you a little bit better answer, it figures out right about 60-40 between Whitman and Hanson, what that's going to be.
our normal split that we've got,
Right.
Right, there isn't
Yeah,
a big
okay.
change
Yep.
based on the October 1 enrollment.
okay.
And we've pretty much got that down to enrollment is decreasing, and it's not Whitman Hanson, it's decreasing across the state and across the country. People are having less children.
So to Jim's point, I think one of the things that I've been hearing, in the community is like, what's the impact gonna be on my kids that are up at the high school? Is it gonna be larger classrooms? Is it gonna be a nightmare of traffic? Is it gonna be those types of things?
Well, I think any one of the team can, but I can probably answer that for you. The transition of change is always going to be different. You're going to have student drop-off. So as you see the route now, you come up the driveway, where you'll be coming, those parents will be pulling down and around and going up to the right-hand side of the building, if you know where the office wing is.
Yeah.
They'll be coming to the right-hand side of the building. There's going to be a dedicated door, and that's going to be the wing for pre-K. So they'll be coming around and going out. They've already met with the fire chief and discussed, where the fire lane's going to be. It's going to change a little bit from where it is now. And then that's going to be cordoned off, like with a gate, so you can't get up there after certain times of the day. So we don't see too much impact with that.
And will we be completely separating the little people from the high school, or?
I think, Laura, essentially it's going to be a school within a school.
Okay,
And
excellent.
Ernie can go into the specifics of what that construction is, but it should be an area of the school that high school students really don't even need to go through,
Okay.
pass through, or be involved with unless there's a reason to be there.
Yep.
So that's why it's, if you know where technology services
Yes, I
is,
do.
it would be that back
Yep.
corner there. So it was a nice cohesive area, and this is not unusual. Numerous high schools in the area have preschool programs in them, and so we've been, looking at what those are doing. Kyle Riley is here with us this evening. He did a similar project in Dayton Rehoboth when he worked there, so maybe you could even add a little bit of how you've seen it work as a separate entity.
Sure, and so, and maybe to add to what Bob said, one of the other important things is start times. So the high school is starting
Yep.
at one time, it's an hour later before the preschool comes in, so there's no conflict of
Yep.
traffic jams in there. They do have 2 half-day programs that happen up Lincoln at a good time during the day, so there's no traffic pattern that changes for the high school student or parents. My experience has been pretty good with it, so, and maybe, the small things I stumbled upon before, I certainly won't stumble upon this time, but we find that there's some opportunities for our high school kids in the long term,
Sure.
that the parents feel like it's a safe building, it's a secure building, that they're coming up to something that's very organized, and it will be, as Bob described, you coming up one road dedicated just for the preschool, coming to one door dedicated just for the preschool. Some of the work that Ray will probably talk to is the doors that link the classes together that we put in. So even though that section of the building will be kind of locked down as a school inside a school, we can move within a classroom, inside a classroom without going out to the hallway for 3 and 4-year-olds. So it adds another layer of security for parents, I think, and lets them, assure them that their children are safe. McQuan has some issues that we all know, and as you look at that for your 3-year-old, as someone who has 6 kids, for your 3-year-old or going up to high school, it's, looks like the day it was built. I think you'd feel a lot more secure there.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think I understand that a lot of this stuff is, very much, you've conceptually got it down pat, but some of the costs and all that stuff have got to be worked out. And I'm glad to hear that you're meeting with the parents. Are we gonna ramp up the number of meetings with parents? There's just some generalized anxiety out there about this. And I know that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be meeting if we don't have something final to really talk about, so.
The high school project, Laura, is just about final as far as where everything's going to be. We're hoping to get it done earlier so we can show the parents, because a picture, us walking in and saying, here's where your children's gonna be, here's the road, here's the door, here's what it is, that'll remove a lot of anxiety. I did have one parent ask me, getting back to what Kyle said, my 3-year-old's going to school at 6:55. I said, no, more like 9 o'clock. So
Yeah.
that part of the traffic is going to be gone. So we feel that obviously all the kids that are in the high school, their cars will be parked, the buses will be gone. They've been in school for a couple of hours and settled down in this. They probably won't even see them coming and going. The transition should be smooth.
Dawn.
No, isn't there already a road that goes into the right of the school?
Goes all the way
From the
around.
parking lot,
Yes,
goes up right around the school and comes
Right
out
on
the
the
other
hill.
side.
Yep.
So actually, it'll make it an easy transition just to drive in there and drop the children off and go around.
we're hoping
Right.
that it's going to be very, very easy. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot
well-
of thoughtful planning has gone into it. I mean, they've done some studies and really looked at it. It's been pretty extensive. I mean, you can see the paperwork. I probably would have brought you a drawing and said, here's what's going to happen. But it's pretty extensive, the planning. We're very proud of this team, what they've accomplished in such a short time to get this done.
It sounds very well thought out.
yeah.
What involvement have the pre-K teachers had in this design, and have, are they part of the solution? And
Answer that because Tricia Collins reports to him.
Yeah, as the preschool director, we meet on a regular basis, so our transition team meets. I usually report out to the people that need to know what they need to know. And part of the issue that Bob had mentioned is you don't want to go to everyone and say, we're thinking the door is going to go here, then it changes a week later, and come back and say, okay, it's now here. And so there's some of that reluctance to put it all out there and then make changes and people think you don't know what you're doing. So to get some kind of foundation of where we think things are going to be good, safe, and permanent, and then to get that word out. We talked today in one of our transition meetings this morning about making sure that teachers have a say in smaller stuff, like paint colors for the room, or where a swing would go, or what kind of desks do they need if they don't have them, what kind of I know some of the manipulatives that they have in their room are getting old, and how to replace that, what's the best way to do it? There's no sense, and this is a simple thing, but there's no sense in buying 5 different farmhouses when we can buy one and share that piece, and buy one of this and share that piece, and make sure our curriculum lines up, that we have the tools that teachers need. So we've had those conversations
Yeah.
already with staff.
that sounds great. I mean, because I think this sounds like a great plan. I can completely conceive of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Sounds excellent, given the constraints that we've got. I have no doubt that we will, with flying colors, and when I say we, I mean the royal we, probably you guys really, will execute this well. I'm just concerned about the people factor, making sure that we're telling people, that we're listening to concerns, that we're taking everybody's feedback, and we can't please all the people all the time. God knows we know that. But I just want to make sure that, we're really being thoughtful about that, because at the end of the day, to me, I want the kids to be excited to be in the new school, and the teachers to be excited to be in the new school, and to people to feel as good as they possibly can about it. So it sounds like you guys are all over it, and you'll have more solid costs December 13th. And so are you guys envisioning, I have no idea, nobody's talked to me about costs, but in my mind, I've got some numbers I'm floating around, completely unscientific. I would assume these would be dollar amounts that we would need to bring to town meeting.
That's correct.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
All right.
Actually, December 11th, Whitman is actually having a special town meeting, and they have on their warrant, this is what, these preliminary costs that Bob was talking about is $44,360. So Hanson's share would be $17,824, just to get us started for the vacations, December
Yep.
vacation and February vacation, which that will include, we talked about moving the computer lab, so we're gonna have to rip up the carpet, which Ernie's guys will do, but we're gonna lay down VCT tile. We're gonna have the outside entrance door, gonna try to get that done. And then, the interior doors between the 3 rooms the 3 rooms that will become part of the preschool, and then upgrading the LED lights in the pre-K rooms. And if we can get that all enclosed, then we'll be able to work on that, and there will be no disturbance to the other children that are in the high school.
So that's sort of phase 1, and then there'll be
Right.
additional costs for the
There'll be
rest of
additional
them.
costs, right,
Okay.
so,
Ernie, could you talk a little bit about the timeline that you see from the preliminary piece?
Okay, so the Christmas break, the technology part, the computer labs we have underground feeds that have to be pulled out. And then the floors have to be resurfaced, and in these 3 classrooms, VCT tile has to be put down. Once that's completed, then we have 3 classrooms that preschool is going to be going into that will transfer at some point in time in January over to those 3 rooms that we did during the Christmas break.
Oh, okay.
So I think when you look at the back of the school, the 3 computer labs at the back of the school will now be standard classrooms. That's the conversion.
Yeah.
That's some of the money that Christine and Ruth are asking for tonight. And then what we'll do, and Jimmy, you asked this question earlier about noise factor. Anything that we're doing over in those 4 classrooms or 5 classrooms we're going to be working on, anything that deals with noise or disruption will be done on off hours.
Okay.
A lot of what will happen in those rooms leading up to the Maytown meeting will be busy work, preparing, looking at what we're doing, because we all have to understand that Maytown meeting is going to dictate what we can do in those classrooms. We have to add bathrooms. Obviously, the roadways got to be redone. There's some other things in those classrooms that have to be done that we have to wait. Number one, get final numbers, and then also get approval from the town of Hanson. And then once we get the approval, and then all that busy work we've been doing, we'll be able to connect everything together. Our goal, and Bob's got the schedule there, our goal is to have those preschool classrooms completed by June, middle of June, June 12th, June 13th. And then looking forward, everything will then, because that's the key component, getting those classrooms done, so then we can move on to the other projects.
That would be good. Then you can have some orientations and.
Well,
that
what
type of
we're
thing.
hoping to do, Laura, is have some open houses, invite the Board of Selectmen, have a few open houses so parents can come and see the transition. That's why we really want to get it done. But the figures that Christine gave you are preliminary figures. I mean, you're talking more, this is a $40,000, $44,000 thing they got going. You're probably talking this project could be somewhere in the middle of $500,000.
Oh, yeah, I knew when she said that. This is very preliminary,
Very,
phase
very
one,
preliminary.
like bottom line stuff.
You have
that's
to
gotta
put a
get done.
playground in.
Yeah.
A playground's, who knows? You have to put in, redo this whole road. I mean, if a playground's $150,000 guessing, and redoing the road's another 100, there's 250 right there. Plus the 50 she's talking about, we're already at 3.
Yeah.
You know, it adds up fairly quick when you start construction costs. The good part is, we're gonna do as much as we can with the staff that we have to work with to keep the cost as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
But taking a school offline is also going to save money. So in the long run, this is gonna save the town a pretty good sum of money. So that's why we're trying to do it this way, to keep the cost at its minimum. But everyone knew there was gonna be costs. We said that when we
Yep.
talked about closing McQuon School, and there would have been costs to keep it open. So it's either one way or the other.
Well, it's
gonna have-
one-time costs. It's,
Right.
you know, to.
And it's
make
gonna
the
be
change. Yeah.
borne over the year or 2 or 3, and we'll have all of it back.
Chairman, just to go back and chime in on what Mr. Hayes just said, we got the prices on doing the VCT tile in those 3 classrooms plus the carpet. So to remove the carpet was around $2,000, to install the VCT tile was around $11,000. The district said, if we can save some money, $2,000, we're gonna rip the carpet up ourselves, and that's what we're doing. I don't have the mechanics to put down the floor tile, but we do have the people that can rip up the carpet. So that's what Bob's leading to, that we're trying to do as much as we can with our staff when we can do it.
Right. That's great. Okay. Ernie, you had said that all that, the wiring and everything that's under the floor. One of my concerns is what happens to those 3 IT classes? They're not, it's not going to affect that program.
No, what has happened over time is that more and more students, just like here tonight, work with one-to-one devices. So the use of computer labs is really something from the past, and now we're moving forward to much more of a one-to-one laptop or iPad, tablet environment. So we've been able to purchase through what is called E-rate, which is federal funding that we get for technology, the materials that they need, more Chromebooks, laptop computers, things like that. So they'll still be teaching the same classes, they just don't need to be in a computer lab with kids in rows and screens.
It'll be all wireless now.
Right, they don't need to be
And
hard.
everything is web-based and in the
Right.
cloud, and it's just changed dramatically. I mean, when the building was built, that was state-of-the-art to have these computer labs. That's really not the way it is.
No, that's a good question, though. You don't want to take away. You don't
No,
want. yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to believe, we keep talking about the new high school. New high school's 13 years old. It was the new middle school. I think the middle school's 20 years old.
Yeah.
So it just, time goes quick.
Nice.
Does anyone have any more questions? All good questions. Mr. Hayes and your team, thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
the update.
Thank you for having us, and I'll come back and keep you abreast of exactly what's going on.
Okay.
Every so on as it goes, and we'll try to, and we want to keep all the residents involved too.
Right.
Okay.
I think
Well,
we
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
Christine.
I just would ask that you take a vote that we are able to move forward for the 17,824, which is your share of the 44,360.
Preliminary costs.
Preliminary costs.
What would the funding source be for that?
We would have to go back, we're giving them permission to go ahead and spend that fund with the notion of reimbursing them at the ensuing town meeting. But this allows them to go ahead and do what they need to do.
Okay.
You've done this first
Yeah.
before.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we
This is
have.
not,
We're
this
just,
is not unusual.
okay.
We'll fund it, I believe it'll be funded at Main Town Meeting,
Okay.
free reimbursed.
Can you give us that dollar amount again?
Sure.
please?
$17,824.
Support these. I move that the town of Hanson fund $17,824 as phase one of the retrofit to the high school for the McQuon transition.
Second.
Perfect. Motion's been made and seconded. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bob, I just wanted to ask you a quick question though.
Sure.
For an up to the minute update, it might be a good idea to show up at the December 13th meeting at the high school.
We're putting this on every single agenda between now and the end of the project. We have an update on what's going on. So I think it's important for,
Love to have it.
citizens to know,
Okay.
come to school committee, we'll be updating regularly. And it's also televised if people,
And are
can
things
see it.
posted on the website if people want to, or will they be soon
Yes.
posted on the
Yeah, right now, we
website?
really have,
Okay.
things are a little bit too preliminary.
Sure.
But we have done a good bit, clearly, when we knew we were moving it to the high school, moving the preschool to high school, all the preschool parents were contacted, so there aren't people who don't know that that's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Good.
We had a parents' meeting on October 19th with Hanson parents, and Beth Wilcox, Bill Tranter, Kyle Riley, and I worked with them to see what were their questions, what did they want to know. So we're continuing to do that as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And one more thing, we encourage people to attend school committee meetings. That's the way you find out what's happening. This month's school committee meeting is on December 13th, which is a Wednesday night. I know it's Christmas, but school must go on.
And Bob, where are
7
those
o'clock.
held?
And they're 7 o'clock, 7:30, because we have to have an executive session first, at the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School Library.
Okay.
So anyone that has any questions or has any school questions, please come to school committee meetings.
Plenty of front row seats, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, next on our agenda, the Hanson AA change of manager to Michael Mansfield. Is Michael Mansfield in the house? Mr. Mansfield, how are you?
Doing good.
The only question I have is, what's the reason for the change of management?
They do it every year.
Stepping down is the change of our president, and nobody else wanted to take over the manager
Joe
position.
Dillon.
Okay,
And so I volunteered to do it.
right, okay.
It's
Thanks.
done every year.
And
Changes.
they're up to date on we haven't had any issues, they're up to date on taxes, there's been no liquor license infringements or any of that, okay.
I'll motion it.
I'll second it then.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to change the management of the Hanson AA to Michael Mansfield. Any more questions, Jim?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, Mike.
Next on our agenda, the American Legion, same thing, change of manager to Joe Martin. Is Joe here? Marsden?
Yes, sir.
I apologize.
That's no problem.
How are you?
Very well, sir. How are you?
Good. I have the same question for you, sir.
Well, I was bar manager for like 8 years maybe, and then I stepped down. I wanted to retire, get out of everything. My wife wanted to go, excuse me, my wife wanted to go do something.
Yeah.
And plans fall apart. So the last bar manager we had, a woman, she wasn't used to running a veterans organization, and she thought she was at the Park Plaza in Boston, and it didn't work out. So she just walked out one day and never come back. So, I'm back.
Jump back into it.
Yes,
Back
I
by
am.
popular demand, okay.
Well, I'll motion that. too.
Same questions. We don't have any, there's been no issues there, they're up to
They're
all
all
on
up to
everything?
date, yep, and they're
Okay.
doing their
Yeah.
liquor license renewals next.
I'll motion the same thing.
I'll
on that.
second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to change the manager to Mr. Joe
Marsden.
Marsden. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, good luck, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on our agenda is discussion regarding regional dispatch. I decided this afternoon that we are gonna table that item until the chairman comes back, but I would encourage the board to review the pros and cons from the fire chief and the police chief. Just go through those and take a look, and we'll bring it back up next Tuesday.
So our plan is to discuss it December 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay,
I'm fine with that.
Mr. McHugh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And you guys have those emails from the department heads? Okay. All right. Next is vote the relocation of the town election from McCorn to the Hanson Middle School.
And-
I do have, I was just gonna read a email that I have from the town clerk, Beth Sloan, to the board. I would like to request that the Board of Selectmen vote to move the town of Hanson's elections from the McCorn School to the Hanson Middle School because of the closing of the McCorn School at the end of this coming school year. This would be in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 55, Section 24, to vote a new polling place in town. So that's the letter we have, and there's also a motion attached. I can make the motion and we can talk about it.
So move.
Motion, I make a motion to change the polling place.
Second.
From the town of Hanson, from the McCorn School, 38 School Street to the Hanson Middle School, 111 Liberty
This here
Street,
someplace.
starting with the next scheduled election date of
Yes.
May 19, 2018, the annual town election. So, discussions.
I mean, it says, she says that she's discussed it with Ernie and the Hanson Middle School principal. The school is closing. It seems to make sense. I mean,
Doesn't sound like there's a lot of options there.
so you made the motion and somebody seconded it. I don't know.
I believe
Dawn made
Dawn.
the motion.
who.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dawn made the motion, you
Okay.
seconded it, right?
Yeah.
No, Jim Hickey
Jim
seconded it.
Hickey, Jim
How
Hickey.
could
you
how could I forget you, Jim?
I snuck one in there.
All in
Holy
favor?
moly.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0.
Beth, I just wanted to ask you, Beth, though, is there do you have a plan in set to, to get it ready? Because I know, down here you had everything set up and,
Yeah, we've already got, Ernie's gonna build a cage, put all my stuff that I normally keep in the McCorn School, at the middle school, they have a section. Jean and I, this is the town clerk, Ernie and the principal all went through everything to try to get an idea of how we're gonna do it. It's gonna be, trial and error as far as, how it's gonna work, but
right.
we'll get it done.
All right, great, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Beth. Okay, next under new business is forestry management plan. And I don't know if you knew, but Dave Hanlon is out sick.
Yes.
The tree warning is out sick, so Mr. McHugh will reschedule that for a later date.
And that's totally fine, but I think that this is gonna need both Phil Clemens and, Dave, because it's talking about town.
Phil was
for-
coming.
Okay.
I told
Oh,
Phil-
okay.
I told Phil that it was postponed.
Okay,
So
great.
Phil had every intention of being here, coming down for his conservation meeting. But because of the illness of the tree warden,
Okay.
I had recommended that we postpone this, and again, I made Phil aware of it.
So are we gonna try for that one on December 5th too?
Yeah, if both parties are available,
Sure.
yes.
Okay, so next under new business, we have vote and accept October donations. I have a donation from Akara Capanelli, $125 to the library. I have McLaughlin, $25 to the police department. And then I have Kathleen and Ralph Canina, $50 in memory of Millie Lyons.
Motion.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept
Second.
these three gifts.
Donnie motioned, I seconded.
So motion made and seconded. Any questions?
Just on the third one,
On the
Kenny?
third one, yes, sir.
The first one says a gift to the library, the second one says to the police department. The third one
Yeah,
doesn't say where the
That's the
fifth.
senior center. It's for
The senior center?
yes.
Okay. I'm good.
That's a good question.
Okay, it's been made and seconded.
Yep. All those in favor? 4-0. Okay, next on the new business, we have vote the private way, the plow list. So this is a housekeeping item that the highway department needs us to approve the private ways in order for them to plow. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the private way plow list for 2018.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a newbie question, just because this is the first time I've ever really thought about this. I assume that Bob is okay with doing, that he's put this list together,
Puts this list
that he
together.
feels like these are roads that his guys can make it on, and, that they can safely plow and all that stuff?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I got-
Mr. Howard?
Yeah, these are all private roads, correct?
That's correct. They're all private roads.
And the asterisk that's behind these few,
I believe American
that's the other
Credit.
ones.
That was a
they
cut and
still
paste error,
plow 'em?
and I apologize for that. The asterisks mean the developer will
They
plow.
plow
If they
'em.
don't
That's
plow
what I
it,
mean,
we
right.
will plow it and then bill
Okay,
them.
so that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay.
And
So
unless an
those-
emergency, if the town has to plow it, they pay for the town plowing it.
So it could be a street that they're still building on, so the developers, it's his
Right.
responsibility
They're
to
taking
plow.
care of the
So those
roads.
ones with the asterisks you'll see on there, there's
Yep.
5 of them,
Yep,
but good
everything's
question.
all set.
Any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Mary. Okay, next we have department reports. And the first department is the ADA committee, is Michelle Mills. Hi, Michelle, how are you? Come on up to the podium, please. Thank you. We want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Well, since I was last here and appointed, we were, Mike and I were, took a 2-day course, and we were,
Trained.
thank you. Yes, we were trained on the ADA rules and regulations. And so from there, I decided to write some columns in the Whitman-Hanson Express about the goals and of the ADA, and take one goal each and flush it out so that people can understand it. And they might be actually interested in something that I would say, or that it said. Therefore, I would get members, hopefully. And I have gone to a meeting over at East Bridgewater with the Mass Office and just Department of Roads. I went there myself because they had put that on the MOD timeline online. So I said it's East Bridgewater. I might as well go. And I got a little bit of their ideas of what they're doing. They're giving my mind is gone.
Take your time.
Good. They are giving grants to help with doing things with the town for the disabled. sidewalks, such as that. And the last thing I'd like to ask is, what would the selectmen like to see this committee do?
Well, I think it's great that you're doing the articles. I saw the article about you being on the committee, which I thought was very brave of you to do. I thought it was a good, because I think we have a similar committee at my place where I work, and I think one of the first things that, people always deal with is breaking down some of the barriers so that people aren't embarrassed about saying, I have a disability, because it may not be a visible disability. It could be a mental health issue. It could be any number of things that are not apparent to somebody walking around. And there's still some stigma around a lot of that. And so I think a very important role that this committee plays is saying, like, you don't need to feel stigmatized. You can, let us know what your needs are. And if as a committee we can try to help be inclusive and address those needs, we will try to do that. So I applaud you. I think you're very brave for doing this. I think it's great that you've taken the time and invested so much. And I think that your energy is going to probably attract some people who might otherwise not have done this. They might say, okay, well, she's out there doing this and she's talking about these types of things and I've got some ideas. But I hope you have more success than some of our other committees in recruiting people, and I certainly wouldn't take it personally if you don't get people right away, because we have been underwhelmed with the response for a lot of our committees. But, I for sure, that is, I think, the visibility and letting people know and putting out the beacon that we're here, you can come to us, you can talk to us. And I love the fact that we're going to be thinking about grants, and I really love the idea of the sidewalks. We hear over and over again that people, for a variety of reasons, would like sidewalks. And I like the fact that accessibility for people who might not otherwise be able to get around is particularly important. I mean, if you think about it, if you're in a wheelchair or you have some other type of mobility issue, and you don't drive, how the heck are you going to get around? I mean, we are rather a one, horse cart, town here. And
The other thing I've been doing is going around to the senior center, and I've gone to the library. The library has books on tape. They have books that can help with the blind people.
Yes, yep.
And, of course, the senior center is a wealth of information down there. They've got everything from to help with the new taxes now, and all you have to do is call, and they'll answer any question. I'm getting the impression that you would like me to write some articles about certain things.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned that was something that you were doing. I certainly don't want to impose on you. I feel like you're already putting a lot of your time in on this. But I do think that education is probably 90% of the battle, and then the other 10% is saying to people, you don't need to feel stigmatized. This is part of life. People have different paths, they have different disabilities and different abilities. But I think getting that message out there is super important. I mean, I don't know what other people think, but I like the idea of looking aggressively for grants.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said.
Okay. I can flesh all that out and make the article cogent and readable. And
Do you go on Facebook at all?
oh, yeah.
So maybe even an article once in a while on one of the town pages, that something short and brief.
Well, she could share what she writes for the Express onto the Facebook pages,
Yeah.
And really get the message out
So I
there.
think
share
that
it,
letting
yeah.
people know that they're not alone, and if they wanted to come out or even talk to you about it,
And what you're talking about is perception.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, because I've had that problem myself.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was brave of you to talk about what your path was, how, why, what people had thought about you, what, the people asked you whether you had strokes and all that type of thing. And that, I thought it was gracious of you to offer that up to people and to, it really takes some internal fortitude there and some leadership to do that, and I applaud you. So I think, and I applaud Mike for getting this initiative going. It's long overdue. Really, I hate to put all of this on you, but we need you to tell us what you feel like we need to be doing for you and for the committee.
Okay. I would like, frankly, to write some articles about the goals of this ADA committee. I'm used to calling it a commission because in Cohasset, when I had the commission as the chairman, it was a commission.
Yeah.
So I'm going to write some articles. Maybe I'll put them up online.
Yeah.
And give them to Tracy, and she can post them in the Whitman Hanson Express.
Well, also, do we have a tab for the committee on our town website?
Not yet, but we can do that, and anything that you put out,
Yeah.
Michelle, we can add to the website.
Okay. All right, that's good, because I think that's the best way of doing it. Me having cerebral palsy since forever, some people just look at me and perceive that, nah, she can't do it. And then they hear me talk, and then they know that I've got a problem, okay? And then they say, she can't do it, okay? So that's what people are up against.
No, but you are doing it.
You are doing it.
I
yeah.
am.
Thank you very much.
We knew you could do it the last time.
And we
you
knew
came
we
to
could
us.
do it.
Well, I got to tell you, you want to know what fright is? Getting up I got up in front of teenagers to teach them, but this is different.
No, it's not. This is more relaxing.
Okay. So,
Keep telling yourself that, Dawn.
It is.
so anyway, listen, if you guys think of anything that you want me to write about, or if you want me to pursue, and let me know, and I will try and get some volunteers. It's not easy, but I think with articles about different things that they may have, that they may worry about, I think I'll get them in.
Well, and I'd love to see some, again, I'm not, because you're a committee of one right now, I don't want to keep piling on, but, I'd love to see some awareness, this type of stuff, like maybe a thing on cable where, people talk about, what should I be doing, or like caregiver, people that are in relationships with their caregivers, because there's high burnout there. There's so many different tentacles to this that you could, really pursue. But I think starting with the articles, trying to build some critical mass and get a committee going so that you're not a, committee of one, probably is a great start.
Okay. And what I'm hearing again is I need to get a list going so that I'm not doing everything all at once. So,
Yeah, prioritize, yeah, definitely.
So I think that's about it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think it's important to point out, at least from my perspective, all the work that Michelle's already done, and we are in contact on a fairly regular basis as to try to move this committee forward, as well as the goals of the committee. The board may remember that probably 4 or 5 months ago, I put before the board a couple of policies for approval that were necessary due to both state and federal ADA regulations. When Michelle and I went to the meeting at the end of September, we became aware of some other things that the town needs to get up to speed on, self-evaluation, some notifications. There's a whole list of things that we're going to start tackling. We've started to tackle some of them. And one of the things that she and I both got out of the meeting, among many other things, is the fact that we are now certified, in a sense, to go and evaluate facilities, whether they be municipal, private, or commercial, in terms of their accessibility per the ADA regulations. So what I have learned, and I shared with Michelle not that long ago, is the fact that there is a spot in the open space plan that looks for that sort of a review of all municipal properties. And again, she and I are both qualified to do that. I'm going to put together some text that can be put into that particular plan to help that plan fall into compliance and get approval from the state. Based on our availability, we'll be going around and we'll be doing that to all the town facilities. So just in and of itself, the fact that we attended that and we got that sort of knowledge and that sort of education is already coming back, and it's benefiting the town in a way that perhaps even she and I didn't realize until a few weeks ago. Well, we've got to do this. Oh, guess what? We can do it. So I think there's an awful lot on the horizon in terms of what we will proactively be doing with not only this committee, but myself, my office, Mary and myself, things that we'll be bringing before the Board of Selectmen. And as I think was touched upon at one point in the conversation, there are grants out there. We do have to get some more of these ducks in a row before we can qualify for those grants. So we'll be working on those, and we'll be bringing updates to the board on a regular basis. And just to echo everyone else's voices here, previously, we really do need people to consider joining this particular commission. There are some qualifications, as was discussed at a previous meeting. There's certain slots for certain individuals in certain situations. So if you have any interest whatsoever, even offline, you can give me a call, you can give Michelle a call, and we can talk about whether or not it's something that you're interested in doing. But it certainly is, unfortunately, often an overlooked commission. It's often an overlooked topic. It's an important topic, and it shouldn't be overlooked. So please feel free to give any one of us a call and chip in.
I agree. Just one last thing that I would like you to you can parking lot this, because I know I've already given you a whole list of stuff, but one thing I would like to think about, Mike, is up the road, would it be possible to have a member of our, again, fictitious committee, because it's only one person right now, but be on the open space committee? Because I think we need to think about accessibility to some of our public land. And I know Phil has thought about that in some aspects, but I think it might be good to have somebody who can advocate for what needs might be there.
And that is part of what needs to be addressed in that open space plan in terms of what we're going to put together and what hopefully within the next several months or so we can take a look at. Obviously, the upcoming winter season is going to be conducive for some of these things, so it's going to be a little longer timeline than if we were starting in the spring. But yes, and I will look at a way to add that sort of a voice onto that committee.
Okay.
And again, that's part of the goals. One of the goals is to be involved in the town. And they mentioned in the piece that I read about being on the school committee.
Yep, yeah. I mean, it's all these little, again, you don't know what you don't know. So I think if it isn't something that you've been exposed to, or you may have the best of intentions, but if you don't have that background, or you don't have the education of the little pitfalls for the unwary, we need somebody who who has that unique perspective that they bring to the table. So yeah, school committee, open space. I'm sure there's a list of other, maybe even planning. I don't know.
Okay. So, with that, I will go home and make a list.
Michelle, I want to thank you for your hard work and your dedication from the board. We really appreciate everything, all your efforts.
Well, thank you. I am just glad that I can get out and about and teach. I taught middle school, and I don't know how I did that, actually. But it was a lot of fun. But I thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll see you again, I think.
Yeah, we'll invite you back again. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Too fat for that. Okay, department reports.
Chief Thompson.
Chief Thompson's been waiting patiently. Come on up to the podium.
Thank you. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Have a good holiday?
It's nice to have a day off.
I'll just briefly touch on the major portions of the department, and then if the board has any questions. I'll start off with our run column. Prior to coming over here tonight, I went over, checked the runs. We're at 1,807 up to date. Back in 2015, we had a significant increase of about 394 calls, which brought us almost up to 2,000, the most calls that we've ever done. Excuse me. Last year, we were about 15 shy of that. So
Do you
we're
mean in the last, like,
no, so like in 2015,
yep,
that year was a huge jump for us, like 390 or 80 runs. Got us up to 1,998 calls.
okay.
That's the most runs that we've ever done. Last year we were 1985, and right now we're at 1807. So we're on track. One of the things I do want to point out is that we track multiple calls. So basically, most of the time it's 2 calls, but sometimes we could have 3, 4, 5, or even 6 or 7 calls going on. And back in 2015, 11% of the time we had multiple calls. And then back in 16, we had 14% of the time. And now we have 17% of the time. I have no idea why or what to attribute those numbers to. But it's significant as far as it seems as though once we get a call, they just keep coming and coming and coming. During that storm we had back on October 30th, we did about 39 calls in like a 16-hour period. So I didn't count them in with my run count for my multiple calls, but if you do add that, it gives us 20% of the time. So that's just an important fact to point out on why we continue to staff the 4 firefighters, because that second call comes in and we have them there and we're not waiting for recall to come back.
What were the calls you were getting, like down trees or what, during the storm? I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
multiple trees and wires, and like
Okay.
all at once.
Yeah.
Got hit hard like from midnight till 2, and then again from like 4 to 8, and then just some stuff as people came home from work.
Yeah,
We did have a busy stretch from October 24th all the way till the week after that storm. We had 3 med flights and a house fire, and we also had that storm. Those 3 med flights. The first med flight we had on October 24th was a head-on accident, and none of our ambulances went because they were on calls. So that just goes to show the multiple calls. So those 3 accidents that we utilized med flight to transport the patients into Boston because they needed to get into a level 1 trauma center. And also we had the building fire on High Street, which the crews did a great job. Overall, they do a great job, but on those specific calls, it was a lot of teamwork, a lot of moving parts to get it done, especially when we call in other towns and we have to work with them. So it worked out well.
I know you guys always do a good job, but there was a couple of weeks there where it was crazy.
We were busy.
I mean, it was just absolute insanity with the types of things that were happening and the frequency.
So that's pretty, like I said, with call volume. We continue to staff to 4, try to keep a lieutenant there at all times. And again, I don't know why we have those multiple calls. It just seems to happen that way. Moving on to our apparatus, great shape. Our ambulance, we got it back into the end of June, put it in service right after the 4th of July. So we've had that in service for 5 months, and it already has 12,000 miles on it. Wow. So it's pretty busy. As we are aware, we got the grant for the brush truck. That's been all spec'd out. It's all ready to go as far as the order, and we should see that sometime in early to late spring. Once they get the chassis, it's like a 180-day build-out period. As far as our vehicles goes, we're in decent shape as long as we continue to follow our capital plan, and we have the ability to follow that financially. I think we'll be in good shape for the future. The station, we just had the driveway done. That was a huge project for us. We've been looking for it for a while. It was spec'd out a certain way, and the company that came in that did it, we had a certain amount of money in the budget, and when they came in, they decided that it really shouldn't be done that way when they actually get down to it. So it was a full reclaim and regrade, and so it's a brand new parking lot, which is great for the town. It's going to last well over 35 years. It was additional money, but the money was in the article, so that's great. Again, as far as headquarters goes, it's a 39-year-old building. We have some items on our capital plan that, again, hopefully we're financially okay to, as a town, to be able to address those, and we'll continue to aggressively maintain the building and keep it the best that we can. But it's in really good shape.
Is one of the items that you're going to try to address the sleeping quarters?
That, at some point, we'd like to reconfigure the second floor.
Yeah.
One of the big items we have coming up is to resurface the apparatus floor. I do believe at some point we should do a feasibility study where somebody comes in and looks at the needs of the department for the future and how to address them long-term. I'm talking like, 10 years, 11 years. I don't foresee that station moving. I see us staying there for a very long period of time, but again, it's 39 years old, so we need to make sure that we address those items.
Okay.
Main Street Station's in decent shape, really no issues. We use it for storage, and we can also staff that in the event of a blizzard. We could put an ambulance in our squad truck down there if we had to. I'm trying to think.
You'll get that all redone down there anyway.
Pretty much, yeah.
Looks very good.
It works. And then last but not least, one of the most important things is our personnel. A very exciting time in our department. We were very fortunate to get the funding and the support to get the deputy chief position. In the past, the deputy chief, it was over 20 years ago, that person worked a shift. Our dynamics have changed. And the fact that this person is going to be an administrative deputy chief, obviously be involved in operations, but work an administrative schedule to assist me. It helps us with succession planning in the future. It allows to free up the company officers to just focus on training their crews. And we have a pretty good deficiency in our fire prevention area as far as inspections. We hit the major stuff, but we could be better in that. So that's something that this position will pursue. In getting the deputy chief position, that opens up a lieutenant's position. And so going back to the deputy, there'll be an orientation for the eligible candidates on Friday, and they'll be put through an assessment center on January 6th. And the way that it works is the top score gets the position. That frees up a lieutenant's position. We've had 7 people that are eligible apply for that lieutenant's position. Wow. They will take a written exam in April, a Friday on April, and everything is outlined in the collective bargaining agreement. So they'll take that, and then whoever gets a 70 or better will move on to a fire problem and a counseling session, and they'll get graded on that. And again, the top score gets that. With that being said, it gives us a firefighter vacancy. And we talked to the board about maybe changing how we hired, if we could hire a medic or if we could hire somebody that was in school. And myself and the 4 lieutenants ran that process back on November 17th. And we gave a conditional offer of employment to a gentleman by the name of Thomas White, who grew up in town. He currently lives in town, and he's a reservist firefighter for the United States Army.
Wow.
So he's in the process of getting through all his pre-employment conditional things. So that's pretty much it, all the big stuff. Do you guys have any questions regarding the department?
How many candidates are going for the new position? I'm sorry, Ken. How many candidates are going for the new position, not the lieutenant's position?
3. There was 4 eligible, and 3 have put in for it.
Okay.
So lieutenant, that you won't be able to do until April, you said?
Yeah, what happens is you have to post it so long and then give them so many days to study as outlined in the collective bargaining agreement. So yeah, the written test will be in April, and then probably within a week, the people that attain 70 and better will go through the next
So you'll be without a lieutenant for 3 months?
Yeah, we make somebody like an acting or a senior person.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it's exciting. I mean, it's good for us. There's movement, people. The good thing is we're going to have 7 people studying some books, so everybody's going to get better at their job, right?
Yeah, good point.
Any other questions regarding the department before we move on to?
Any other questions regarding the
No.
department?
Yeah.
Can you talk, while you're there, can you talk to us about the ambulance rates?
All right, I'll be brief. I just want to give you a little history on that. So when I took over in '08, we had ambulance rates, and there's been a lot of bills and legislation that want to address the way that we bill for ambulances, and this has been going on ever since I became the chief. I did a study in 2012, which I didn't include in your packet, but if anybody would like a copy of it, I can email it to you. And I basically did a study that showed like what we get per transport and what our actual costs are. And just so you know, we have to bill everybody the same rates, but if somebody's on Medicare, we only get X amount of dollars, say like $480, and don't quote me on that, but about that, and we write the rest off. So when I set these rates in 2012, there was a bill in legislation that wanted to cap it at no more than 3 times the Medicare rate. So what I did was I took the Medicare rate and multiplied it times 3, and then I dropped it by like $100 or $50. In the event that it passed, I wouldn't have to come back to the board. Since then, there's been a lot of talk about ambulance billing. There was one bill that was possibly put in, but it didn't, that they wanted to only allow us to charge everybody the Medicare rate. So no matter what, you got that $486. That's been squashed. There's a new talk of a new bill that they want to go until June 30th of 18, and whatever your rates are, they'll be frozen and you can't increase them more than a certain percentage a year, whatever they decide. So with that, the Rockland chief had put out a survey for ambulance billing, and as on the bigger spreadsheet, you can see what all the towns did. But what I did was I took the towns that come into our community, mutual aid, and actually would transport a patient and charge us, and I took all their rates and just came up with an average, and then I just rounded it off a little bit lower, and that would be my recommendation for our rates. I also gave you guys a copy of our ambulance billing policy that explains in the event somebody is unable to pay, the process that they can go through in order to have us address that.
I mean, so that's all excellent information, a lot of good due diligence. I'm on your policy. What kind of due diligence do we do if somebody says, I just can't pay, I'm not paying it?
Well,
I don't have Medicare, I don't have insurance, go pound sand, you're not gonna get the money out of me.
We do have a list of delinquents, and we've used a deputy tax collector through our treasurer collector, Gene Sullivan, and we've had some success. The plan would be to do what other towns would do, and it would be to come up with an RFP to go out to a collection agency.
Okay. I mean, do we have, is this bigger than a bread box in terms of the number of people that we've got that aren't in our, do we have repeat offenders? And, because obviously we can't deny service, right? I
Correct.
mean.
Correct.
Okay,
And don't forget, not all these people that transporting are from Hanson. They could be transporting them out of Hanson,
excellent
but
point.
they could be
Yep.
from another town too.
Yep,
And just in case anybody knew, the revenue that we bring in from the ambulance account goes into an account, and we use that to offset our operational costs. It goes towards salaries and for the purchase of ambulances and EMS equipment.
okay, and so, so can you just bottom line it for us? You're going from what to what? What's your recommendation?
Yeah, so our BLS rate now is $1,050. I wanted to go to $1,200. Our ALS 1 rate is $1,275. I wanted to go to $1,600. Our ALS 2 rate is $1,875. I wanted to go to $2,200, and our mileage is $16 a mile, and I would like to go to $25. You'll see on the spreadsheet, the bigger spreadsheet, there's a lot of other things that are listed: oxygen, IV. A lot of towns charge that, but what we find is that the insurance doesn't pay that. They just want to pay one rate.
Yeah.
So we've gone to just a rate that's all inclusive.
That seems pretty comparable. I mean, gee, of course Hingham's charging more, but, you know, they have different clientele maybe, I guess. I don't know.
BLS is the base.
Yeah, the majority of our calls are going to be ALS 1.
All right, that's advanced life
ALS1.
support.
Okay,
1. So that's like a basic call. An ALS 2 call would be like a cardiac arrest or a severe trauma.
okay.
Oh, okay, so that's based on what you guys are providing for service.
Right, so there's certain skills and medications and stuff that we have to do to meet that threshold.
So if you go to a call and they refuse transport, there's no billing.
No, but you see some other departments do that. They'll bill like $200. We
Okay.
felt that was necessary.
And Chief, right now, for the BLS, the rate is $10.50,
Correct,
and you want to go up $150.
correct.
Yeah,
So it hasn't gone up in 5 years.
Right, these are what we'll put in place on, in 2012.
okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to increase the ambulance rates for the Hanson Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does anybody have any more questions?
No, I think we should get on it, because like you said, there's been a lot of hubbub about this potentially being a problem, and that bill that had this in it just got squashed, so hopefully, you know, that we weren't gonna be able to set our own rates.
2 questions
Yeah.
for me. When would this start?
I'd like to start it on January 1st.
Okay, perfect timing. And the second thing, what would you need to do to, because I think that going after or doing an RFP for the people that don't pay, I think it's the right thing to do. So what would you have to do to start that process?
we would have to write some type of request a proposal for a company that would do that.
You'd work with Mike on doing that?
Yep,
kind of
we
thing?
actually, we worked with Mike and Todd a little bit, it kind of went by the wayside, there's been a lot of other things going on, so.
Yeah, so maybe after the holidays or something, you guys can start that back up.
I've worked with fire chiefs in the past in other towns, so I have experience in implementing such, so between the chief and I,
Sure.
if the board so wishes, we can work on that.
And that, in my
It shouldn't be
opinion, I
too
think-
difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what the dollar amounts are, not tonight necessarily, but I'd like to know what are we talking about? And certainly, I don't think it's any of our intention to impose upon somebody who's already going through a hardship and having a difficult time. But if it's one of those cases, well, you've already given me the service, and now what are you gonna do? You can't get the money out of me, then,
Well, I'm sure
you know.
they could have some type of hardship policy.
He does,
too.
yeah. He's got that in here,
That he
yeah.
can put and attach to it, so.
Yep.
You know, but like anything else, if you don't pay your bills, you have to be accountable, so that's something
Yep.
I'd like to see you guys look at,
Okay.
all right?
Any other questions?
No, thank you, this was excellent.
That's it for me, thank
So
you.
did you need to take a vote?
No,
It was
no,
moved to
no.
second.
Yes,
Yeah.
Every person that goes.
let Donnie ask this question, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Mary. Okay. That's the ambulance rate. We're moving right along here, folks.
Those were the,
Okay, appointments and resignations.
price, you know, the different.
Conservation
Ambulance?
applicants. We have one vacancy with a term to expire on 6/30/2018. A Michael DeVore. A Michael DeVore,
Nice
75 Orchard Ave. Is Michael here with us tonight? Hi, Mike, how are you?
Oh, good.
And the second one is Kurt Tavares III, 491 East Washington Street. And I don't see Kurt, so I'm just gonna pull up.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible to table this to the end of the meeting so Mike has to stay longer?
Sure. Absolutely, I could do anything.
No, I don't want to do that.
So I'm gonna pull, I
So it's a
reviewed
study
this
in both
earlier,
sides, and
just
it's a learning
briefly.
experience for him.
Yeah.
But we're
Any
gonna,
questions?
we're gonna. I just
Oh,
wanna
you know,
pull
I'm
up-
sorry, I didn't put on the agenda what items they were. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I'm winging it.
You want the hard copies?
Nope, I have it right here. Okay, so Mike, it looks like you've been an associate member of the Conservation Commission. Studied political science. How long you been an associate member?
I've been going since January. I think I've been a member since around May.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Where do you go to school, Mike?
Mass Amherst.
UMass Amherst.
Are you going to be able to attend the meetings?
Yeah, I'm going online.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. And since you're here and we can't ask Kurt any questions because he's not here, what motivated you, why the Conservation Commission? And what do you like about it and what's your philosophy about
Right,
the?
so I'm studying political science, but I'm gearing towards conservation. Just been an interest of mine, so I met up with Phil on one of his nature walks a while back, and we got talking and said come to the meetings. I've been going to the meetings just one every other week. Talking to other people there and like what they do and it's interesting, so.
Okay,
Glad to have you.
it's always refreshing to have new blood.
Yeah, I think looking at his youth and his interest, I think we should definitely put the line in him.
Yeah, I don't have anything against Kurt, and it isn't because he's not here, but I am impressed by the fact that Michael has already been attending those
Going to
meetings.
the meetings.
And, you know, and.
He's here tonight because the
yeah.
chairman does like people, if they can, to make the meetings.
And this will now open up an associate's spot, so if Mr. Traverse is interested, he can
Yes.
start attending the meetings
Excellent
if another
point.
opening comes up.
Yep.
Mr. Hickey, would you like to make a motion?
So moved? What?
Second.
Point.
I'll make the motion to put Michael DeVore on the Conservation Commission.
Term to
With the term to
expire.
expire,
Term to expire June
Term
30th.
to expire June 30th,
2018.
18. Does that work, Mike?
So that was
What's
moved
the
and
A stand for
seconded.
in your middle name?
Alan.
Okay.
Any other personal questions you want to ask?
I know, is that gonna be a deal breaker or what?
Just checking.
It's a good thing he made the motion, because I don't
Right.
think anybody else could pronounce his last name
I know.
correctly.
You
So-
think he's gonna be all right, Joe?
I think he's gonna be great. Yeah,
So moved and seconded, and
I'll vote for him twice.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Good luck, young man.
good luck and
Thanks,
thanks for
Mike.
signing up.
And there's a lot of other commissions that are looking for volunteers, so if you have that extra time, feel free to come back in front of us. Thank you. Okay, we move on to the town administrator's report. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the most important thing, and I've got some other things that I'll update the board on, but I know the board had an awful lot of interest and a lot of observations regarding the storm of the 30th of October, to which the fire chief alluded a few times in his presentation. I wanted to start by saying the magnitude of this storm surprised not only the town of Hanson, but the state of Massachusetts. Typically, when we're aware of a potential natural disaster, typically they're blizzards or hurricanes, we will sit down, the fire chief, the police chief, the highway surveyor, and myself, and anyone else as appropriate, and we'll pre-brief the storm. Every indication that we had, again, that every community in Massachusetts had, that the Commonwealth had, was while this was going to be a windstorm, a storm to keep an eye on, no one thought it would reach the levels that it did reach. And I'm comfortable in saying that the state was also unaware of this, because not only would the town of Hanson and other towns have the types of meetings that I just explained, but MEMA would have a pre-brief conference, a telephone conference, and MEMA did not see fit to have such a meeting. So really, everyone was really caught by surprise. So the town, the departments, I think, responded admirably. I think they, given the situation, they followed everything by the book. There were certain things that obviously were completely out of our control. I think that most significantly was all the power outages. The fire department, the police department, especially the highway department, moved very quickly to do what they could to address at least, I have the number here, there's at least 46 non-power outage related tree incidents, trees crossing roads or hitting houses that the town had to deal with, as opposed to the National Grid. There was an awful lot of concern about information getting out to the residents. There was some discussion as to whether or not we could have done a reverse 911. I believe that the town of Whitman did something to that effect. The difference between the town of Whitman and the town of Hanson is the town of Whitman has its own reverse 911 system, whereas we don't. We rely on the county to do those things. And the county generally shies away from making a reverse 911 over its system for this sort of an incident. Yes, it was a major inconvenience to the people of Hanson, to the people of the South Shore of Massachusetts. However, the concern that the county has, the concern that our emergency service personnel have, is that were we to start making calls or asking the county to make calls, which they really weren't going to do anyways, something of this nature, we could possibly be looking down the line of diluting the impact of these calls in extreme emergency situations, such as a missing senior, a shelter-in-place sort of incident like we had several months ago with armed people running around Hanson. So that is the reason that the county really was not in favor of doing that sort of a message. I can tell you from personal experience in a different community, in a different county, I encountered the same sort of concerns from the county of Norfolk in putting these sorts of messages out. So if the town, if the Board of Selectmen is so desirous, we can look at putting our own system in at some time in the future. Obviously, it would be costly, and I would caution against basing such a decision on one instance. If the board is interested in looking at it, I would strongly recommend we look at other reasons why we want to spend the money on something like that, and there very well could be. I just don't want to do, and I always shy against doing things based on any one episode in particular or one instance in particular. Not saying it's a good idea or it's a bad idea, but we would want to take a look back before committing funds to doing that.
The reverse 911, I have got to, who is sending out the will messages that we get frequently? We get reverse 911 from the will, that the drug support group. I believe they may go through the county, I'm not positive, but they're certainly using some reverse 911 system. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I'm certainly saying that if Will can do that for their support for drug, overdose and all of that, that the town, if we're being judicious, and I would submit to you we are, since we've never asked the county to do this before, I don't want to investigate our own reverse 911, but I definitely would like to push back on the notion that we're going to not be judicious about using the county, and I want to push the envelope on that, Mike. I think we need to have discussions.
I'll look into that, because I'm not living in town, obviously. I don't get those messages. I'll look and see what system is being used to put those messages out. I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying. I would take a step back, because I'm not sure that the town of Hanson has not asked the county to put messages out in the past. So I'd look into that as well. Okay. I'm not sure. I'd be surprised if this was the first time that we thought of approaching them for something that was Hanson-centric, if that's even a word. Yeah, I can look into all of that, but I'm telling you what
Plymouth County is paid for by our tax dollars. We ask very little of Plymouth County, and I just think I'd like to see us push the envelope on this. I'd like to see some more support from them on that.
I can look into again the source of what you're referring, those messages.
And again, I want to be clear, I'm not disparaging Will. I think it's a great program, but certainly if there's a methodology to deliver those messages, then I would think there'd be a methodology for us to be able to deliver our message. Again, judicious use. I'm not saying we're going to call about the Christmas get-together or holiday. I'm not. This was, I take my hat off to all of the departments, highway, fire, police. Everybody did an awesome job. It was, as you said, sort of unprecedented, unexpected, and all of that. And I sort of look at it as a dress rehearsal for, potentially, hopefully, nothing that's going to come up that bad, but for the winter. And thank goodness it wasn't, below zero temperatures or any of that stuff. So I don't think my issue and what I was hearing from people had nothing to do with our staff. Everybody thought that everybody handled themselves wonderfully. What I was getting a lot of feedback on was that lack of communication, about electricity, about what was going to happen, about what we were doing, and that type of thing. So, I would like to have the reverse 911 looked into, and then I'd like to, is there some way we can update our website? Again, not on a super duper frequent basis, but if we have electricity at town hall.
That was one of the unfortunate odd situations or wrinkles to this particular event, that town hall lost power, and we were unable to access those sorts of things, to include the fact that we lost email for quite some time. Part of what I was going to mention, and I'll mention it now, is having identified that as I don't want to say a hole in our operation, but as a potential concern going forward, we have started moving forward in terms of making sure we've got the necessary redundancies in place to at least have a minimum amount of communication, particularly for the emergency services, should we have a repeat of that.
Yeah.
We've gone as far as to, and I think the board may be aware of this, we've gone as far as to commission an additional server be put in place to help effectuate those redundancies, to ensure, to the best of our abilities, continuation of communication. So you, and I think you said it at one point in one of the previous presentations, you don't know things till you know things, or
Right.
you don't know what problems are until the problems present themselves. And we have taken a step back, and at least in terms of communication, been able to look and try to tune up some of the redundancies, which were not necessarily the case a year or so ago when the systems were at the
Right.
high school.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a whole other bucket of worms, but if the system was back up there, if nothing had changed, a lot of your concerns, and I think a lot of the concerns of all the members of the board in terms of communication would not have existed. So again, we've taken that step, not knowing that was a problem until the problem presented itself, to effectuate some sort of a remedy to that.
Okay, I mean, so I guess, I hear what you're saying. I personally would ask that we look at doing better,
Couple of things
being
here.
proactive.
As far as the reverse 911, we do have access to the reverse 911 through our relationship with the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. However, that's based on the department heads. That's based on the fire chief, the police chief, and the highway surveyor. So the access is going to come from them. When they think that, hold on one second, Donnie. When they think that there's a need to put out a reverse 911, if there was, God forbid, a missing child or something, we do have that access. But I think that we need to leave it up to the department heads to make that call. That, on October 30th, I was in Ohio traveling on business, and I knew clearly it was 72 hours just through social media and stuff, and I wasn't even in town, so.
No, you knew that, but not everybody is on
I
social
know, but
media.
hear me out. Number one, if you send out a reverse 911 and you don't have power, I have Comcast. So my phone, I lost my power. I had no phone. So if you do reverse 911, I'm not going to get the call anyways. And if I did have power, I'm going to get the call and I don't care. So in that situation with the power, I just disagree that a reverse 911 is going to bring people up to speed with what's going on. If the town had municipal lighting like Mirabal or something, I think it would be different. But I just disagree. And I think that we need to leave it up to the department heads to make that decision on whether or not to put out, because it does get redundant. If you start doing it too many times, when somebody is missing, someone's gonna go, oh, it's that stupid 911 thing, And
I
I
see
just
what
think
you're
if we
saying,
start policing our department heads, our commissions and stuff, I think we're treading in areas that we really shouldn't be. We have enough to focus on.
And I think going back to both of your points, I think that had this sort of event happen in the winter months, where electricity was knocked out and people were potentially facing freezing situations, I think that would have been a horse of a different color. I think that, not only the department heads, but the county, they take into consideration those sorts of things. The fact that, again, and I know it was an inconvenience, and someone's out of power for a day, 2 days or so, it's a terrible inconvenience. But given the fact that it was a mild time of the year, there was a mild couple of days, and that we weren't in a position where we needed to open up shelters, we weren't in a position where we were concerned about people freezing in their homes. Again, that factors into that decision-making as well. And to go back to something that the chairman also mentioned, all the information that I'm aware of that we could have provided was a timeline. We direct, and I believe we had something on the website when finally the website got up, all that sort of information, or the requests for timelines and updates, all that information really is directed back to National Grid as to when they're going to get out. Like I said, we do what we need to do, or we can do. We open up the roads, we take the trees off the houses. If somebody has a medical condition, the chief's people go out and take care of them. But as far as the electrical work goes, we make the phone call. We could make the same phone call that an individual could make, and the individual's actually better off making the phone call because they can get specific information to their street or their house or their particular part of the grid. We can't really, we don't have the manpower to be the middleman in making those sorts of calls. So with any sort of event that deals with electricity, it's, the citizens can get pretty much the same information we can get, if not better specific information, by calling the grid. It sounds like we're passing the buck, but
No,
It's
I
not-
totally agree with
Right.
that. I think, is there some place that we can put this information, like, do we have, maybe we already have it and I haven't seen it, but do we have like a emergency tab on, our Hanson Town website that says, like, here's who you'd call for these types of things?
As soon as we got power back, I put everything up on the website for the people who didn't have power, and there's still several people who didn't have power.
Yeah.
It was up, it was on the emergency tab on the website. Here's the information, here's the link to the National Grid where people could find their own locations and see what you gotta hand it to them, National Grid did a pretty good job for people if you could actually get on the internet.
Yes,
But
they
the
did.
people who don't have power, they're not getting on the internet anyway.
Or phone
But they
calls.
can call somebody, and phone calls are the same way.
Yeah, and Kenny, I absolutely agree. I do not want to step on any of the, like, highway, police, or fire. That's not my intention at all. But the people that don't have internet and don't have cell phones, primarily we're probably talking about some elderly people. I don't know how we can get that information, and there was a lot of anxiety out there.
Laura, we can't. But their neighbors that live next door to that elderly person can. Or, somebody that knows them, or the Meals on Wheels, somebody has to, it can't be us. But if there's an elderly person with no internet and no cell phone, they better hope they have a kind neighbor to go check on them.
And I think, to Jim's point, and I was going to bring this up as well, because I know one or two or several members of the Board of Selectmen reached out at one point and asked me, whether or not there was some system in place to check on people that needed that sort of help, whether or not a neighbor could help them.
Yeah.
And, I'm happy to say, and I fully expected this was the case, that every department has, to include the Council on Aging, has a list, and they go by and they do the wellness checks and whatnot. So to the degree that the town can do these sorts of things, they do. And this particular event, although it had this kind of odd wrinkle in terms of the town hall losing power and being so unexpected, is really, to a certain degree, no different from the events that the town has been dealing with for years and years and years. And all those sorts of, albeit, a little more unexpected than in other events, all that stuff kicked in. So, like I said, we have learned a few lessons from this. We're going to address those again, primarily in regards to into communication and actually not so much communication, but redundancies for the internet and things of that nature. And I do also want to note, as Mary just touched upon, that although the town hall was closed, Mary and I were in constant communication, and Mary from her home from a remote location made those sorts of amendments, those sorts of edits to the website, to as soon as possible, as soon as the power was back, to get that information out. So, we do the best we can. There's always going to be some sort of snafu. We learn and do what we can and adapt and modify, which again, I think I've explained with the bits that we are trying to do. And, God forbid, the next event, there may be some sort of lesson we learn from that as well. But I think by and large, and each member of the board has mentioned this, that the emergency services, to include the highway department, did a very, very admirable job, and something that was unexpected.
Don, I'm sorry.
I've got two things.
Okay.
One of them is over at Hanover, they're doing a lot of blasting. And every time, they initially, I don't know how they did it, but they made a call to my house. I don't know how far in Hanson it went or the surrounding area.
Yeah.
But they explained to us what they were gonna be doing on the telephone. And so whatever they're doing, I don't know if they're doing it through Plymouth County or what.
Do you have an 826 exchange?
Yeah,
They
So
have
you're
their
part
own
of Hanover.
system. Hanover has their own system.
but I don't know how far it went. I don't know if they had a
I believe it's
radius that
exchange,
they did
right?
it for.
They
or
usually do it
whatever.
by the exchange.
I think
Yeah.
that's what, I
They
think
did,
that's,
they did a radius.
Did they go by radius?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Do
they
you have
picked, so they
anything to
picked
add
up
to
some
this?
of Hanson residents.
He said he had two things, so I'll wait till he...
Yeah.
Well, the second thing I'd like to see, Michael, put on make an article for Maytown meeting for a generator to power the town hall,
There you go.
okay? And I just wanna cut the thing, let's do it and get it over with.
It's a great idea.
Because there's sometimes, maybe this room could be used for something in an emergency. And there are
idea.
facilities here. Plus the fact it keeps the radios up so that you got communication and phone.
Especially we get the servers in here. I think that's a great idea.
Okay?
And actually, that, in all honesty, Dawn, that is something that we were going to approach in
Well,
the
I think it
spring.
should be done in May.
Yeah, in the spring.
He's trying to steal your idea, Don.
I'm just
You see what's
trying
going
to.
on?
No,
God, great idea. Don't let
Yeah.
him take it from you.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not gonna take it.
I
However,
think we should
I
spend the
will
money now
say.
and get it done and over with.
I will say that when we were trying to figure out the right approach to, as I mentioned, this kind of hole in the coverage, because of the change of the locations of the server and the fact we don't have fiber between.
Well, it's a
us-
public building, I just think it
us
should
and-
be done, period.
But the most expedient thing for us to do, again, God forbid something happens next week, unexpected, the most expedient thing to do to make sure we have those communication redundancies is to take care of the server problem. I agree, and I think long-term or medium-term, or however you want to put it, we should have a generator here. But if we scoped out a generator to address this problem in the short term, we could have run into some sort of an issue, some sort of an event while we waited for the generator to come in. So the backup server is, a short-term solution for actually a couple other things, to tell you the truth. But I think the long-term solution is a generator. But that, of course, has to go out to bid, and, there's all sorts of things that
No, we
need to be
got
done
time
with
to
that.
do it between now and then.
Oh, yes, we do. We do.
Let's get it done.
Chief Thompson.
Yeah, I just had one question. So, basically, you were looking for something simple to go out to say, it's a type 3 event, you're not gonna have power for up to 72 hours, share with your neighbors, something simple like that? That's all you're looking
Yes,
for?
yep, yep. Because there was a lot of generalized anxiety out there, Jerry. People were just freaking out.
And then, as far as the, we have a list of, people that need to be checked on, and we go through that through Mary Collins, and her Meals on Wheels person, and can relay information to them. We basically call her, because she gave us the list, and say, who do you want us to check on, and we'll check on them, but after, like a snow event, we will physically go out into everyone and knock on the door. We're very fortunate that we have a small community with
Yeah.
like Meeting House Lane and a small group of people, because a town like Whitman can't do that because they have so many more complexes in there that they can't go out to each one, so.
People didn't know that. I'm the one who asked you, Mike, because people were saying, what about elderly people? What about people that need oxygen?
Jim asked too.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what about them? So I asked Mike, and he said, oh no, Jerry's guys are all over it. They talked to
We
Mary.
used to have the list, and so does
Yeah.
in the highway will actually, like in a big storm, hit the end of the driveway, just.
Yeah,
in
when I
case
used to
people go
apply for the
there.
highway department, at the end, we had a list of people that we had to go and do,
Yeah.
when you go by on your route, when you're done, you have to stop at 11-1 Ponset, because
Yeah.
Mrs. Jones is there, and she required possibly, emergency management, and so we had a list that we had to
So
go through.
this is to my point, Mike. It sounds like we've got a good infrastructure. I love the idea of the backup generator, automatic backup generator, and the redundancy. To me, it may just be a case of telling people what we've got in place.
Which I guess we did.
We did, but
Yeah.
maybe
And I think
like,
that's important to have the
maybe
conversation.
just before the winter, maybe you could do a little express article or something, just to kind of, just tell people like, hey, if you've got electric. I know this sounds very basic, and I mean, obviously, I call National Grid when I don't have electricity. Like, I'm right on it because I know you've got to report it. And a lot of people think, oh, well, somebody else is reporting, but they may not. be.
That's part of the problem.
So you've got to.
So there might be areas that are out, they don't know, because everybody thinks the
Yeah.
neighbors call them.
So I think like just saying like call National Grid, call Comcast, here's where you can find information, here's what we do about elderly people, if you have somebody who needs to be on the list, let Mary Collins know, that type of thing.
And to your point, Laura, and it's well taken, I think this sort of a conversation, it's not a superfluous conversation. I think that this is important to get information out, because I think an awful lot of the time, and I'm very guilty of it from time to time, that we just assume people know these things because we live these things every day. And you know, when you call or one of the chairmen call and you ask these questions, well, yeah, of course, this is what they're doing. But how would you know?
Right.
How would a lot of these people, hopefully watching the meeting right now, know? Hopefully, you know, how would the people that are going to read the article that I will write, how would they know unless the information was given to them?
Yeah.
So this conversation was certainly worthwhile, and hopefully the Board of Selectmen and those viewing at home are comfortable that we do have all these things in place, that we've got plenty of procedures and policies and regs that we go by to cope with these sorts of things. And again, nobody's perfect, and you know, we discovered that little glitch in terms of not to beat a dead horse, but the communication, and we're addressing that.
But so Jerry, if we did want something like that, like obviously we don't want to step on your feet, or Chief Mix or Bob. That, like, you guys do what you do, you're professionals. We don't want to stand in your way. Absolutely not.
No, just keep doing the service you're doing.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, it's understandable, but obviously we need input. Just briefly, what Mike said, like, usually that storm was just so, the way it hit us, like, I'll be honest, until I was in Mike Mix's office at 4 o'clock listening to a meeting, a conference call, I didn't even think about giving you guys an update. We were just so busy. Usually a snowstorm, you get a couple things here and there, it's a long duration. That thing was just like,
Yeah.
we were just busy.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
All right, Mike, I think we kicked that enough.
Yeah,
Do you have
we
any-
kicked that.
Do you have anything else?
No, well, I have one thing, I had some little quibblings and bibblings that I don't really need to address at this point, other than one item that I did want to bring before the board, because
Okay.
I'd like to get the board's feedback on this. As the board will remember, at the special town meeting, there was an amount of monies, $28,000, that was appropriated to take a look at the current highway building in terms of its potential future use and its current state of affairs. I know that the board has expressed an interest, and it's the direction in which we will go, in putting out an RFP for the potential new highway building, and that's a discussion that we'll have a little further on in a little bit in the future. However, I don't think, and I'll take the board's direction at this, but I would like to proceed with this particular $28,000 review of the current facility with the consultants we have right now. Of course, I'll take the board's direction on that. It's an amount of money that doesn't require an RFP. Technically, the larger amount doesn't require an RFP, but it's good business practice because of the amount of money to go through that. There's no procurement requirement to do anything other than to retain the services of a firm to do this look at the current building. And if the board is so inclined, I'd like to engage the current firm to do that.
Can you, I'm sorry, it's probably because we've covered so much ground tonight. You're saying the review of the existing
Yes,
facility right
correct.
now?
Yes.
You want to have the same firm Kenny's and the guys have been working with
Yes.
On that initial
Hampton.
phase?
Yes.
But then
In
do an
the
RFP
absence-
when it comes out to doing the actual building design and
Okay,
final
so
permits
just for the
and stuff.
28,000
That's it.
lowball, okay.
Yes.
And what about the larger, for the potential future highway?
We
is that-
will go through an RFP process
Okay.
for that, yeah. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
I differentiate the two
Which
things.
we're not ready to do that
Right.
yet, but at least this portion. We want to get going on the existing building.
And that's somebody you've worked with, they know what we're
They're
looking at.
excellent.
I know the
I've
building.
been working with them for 3 years. They're excellent, and I hope they come in with the bid on the new one. I hope the numbers come in.
And can you recap the rationale of why we don't, is it because of the dollar amount that we don't need to RFP, or because it's the engineering services?
Because it's an engineering service, although we wouldn't need to RFP regardless for this sort of an amount, even if it were a requirement. The way that the procurement laws read, $10,000 and below, I can just make that call. $28,000, typically you ask for 3 quotes. Anything over $50,000, the full-blown RFP. with engineering, with actually a number of different professional services. You don't have to go through any of those processes. Engineering, legal, there are a few more that I can't think of, but there's
Maybe
exceptions. And this
accounting, I
is,
don't know.
but this is an exception. So
So-
I would like to just get the ball moving. I think that, you know, if we were to go through that full-blown process, we might save a couple of dollars perhaps. However, we'd lose that degree of intimacy, that degree of experience that this particular company has with that building. And in all honesty, what the procurement laws allow us, if we had to adhere to the procurement laws in this instance, the procurement laws allow us to address the lowest bidder as well as the most qualified bidder. So you can put that sort of a value on their knowledge of the building and add that into the mix and decide, even though maybe they came in
And the other thing I want to bring up, when we hired Weston and Sampson, we did an RFP, I think it was Rich, if I'm not mistaken. And we said, hey, look, we have $30,000. That's what we have. And then we had 3 companies come in and go, okay. And then we brought those 3 companies in, brought them to the police station and interviewed all of them.
Yeah.
Our committee did. And we all voted privately, and all of us came up with Weston and
So
Sampson.
you already went through this process
So,
for the
in
other
other words, if we
RFP.
went out
Yeah.
and did that
Yeah.
again, we would do the same thing. Say, look, that's all. We have no more money. It's 28,000.
Yeah.
And then all the fish would come, and then they'd eat. We'd interview all the fish, and they would probably.
Okay.
So.
And I'd like
Nice
to,
analogy.
I'd like to be able to use that discretion that's given to me by the state, but I want to make sure the Board of Selectmen is comfortable with it.
I mean, again, what's the dollar amount?
28,000.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I am always in favor of RFPs, just to make sure we're getting the most competitive bid and the best candidate. Again, what is the difference in the timeline here if we go with this versus the full-blown RFP? And do you really think that it's just gonna be the same people that RFP'd for this other
I
piece
do.
of business? And,
I do, actually, in all candor. And, you know, I wouldn't be doing my job if I was making a recommendation that I didn't think was in the best interest of the project and the best interest of the town of Hanson. And it's my recommendation. Again, if the board is so inclined for me to go a different route, obviously I'll do what the board wishes me to do. But I'd like to get moving on at least this one piece in preparation to go out and do the full-blown RFP for the potential new building.
Don, what do you think on that? I'm just curious what Don and Jim think, because I like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Don?
Along what you're doing.
Okay, what do you think?
We've already got it, they've already been through the building, they know. So it's kind of a moot point, we can do it and Mike can get it done. We don't have to go through the whole process again.
We don't have to educate them
This is
again.
for the
Yeah.
new structure down on Hawks Avenue?
No.
This is for
Let's
the
be
old
clear.
one up
This
the
is for
top
the
of the
old
hill.
one.
The
I don't
money's
know
already
what we're
been
gonna have to
approved.
do, find out, they're gonna find all the bad possible things that are in there.
And potential reuse.
This is just for,
And
okay,
potential
finding the
reuse, right.
hazardous parts of
It's-
it.
Right,
Okay.
and the potential reuse.
That's what I thought, yes.
Which they
Go
kinda-
ahead and do it.
Didn't they
yes.
already have to
Go.
take a look at that building to kind of know?
I thought
what we
they already
needed for the new
looked
one?
at
Not
it.
that they, not,
Yeah, but not that
not to
aspect
the
of it.
level of
Right,
what they're doing
exactly.
now, but yeah. So they're familiar already with the building,
Right.
with the building, with the
Right, and that's what
department's
Jim's saying.
needs.
Absolutely.
This is the demolition of it?
We've been 3 years
Potential
working,
demolition,
3
yeah.
years
Well,
working
I
with
mean,
them.
everybody knows that the metal building and all the wooden stuff and then the salt shed's coming out of there to
Right.
start with.
What's
So,
worried about is what's on the ground.
Well,
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Is to
I
take a
know.
look at
And the
what.
potential
yeah.
reuse of it,
Yeah.
you know? So I'll make a motion to allow the town administrator, Mike McHugh, to work with Weston and Sampson regarding the engineering services on the existing highway bond.
motion.
So
You
moved.
motion. Did you
You moved
motion?
it, I motioned it,
As,
so you
as,
move it.
as the chairman, he's looking for a motion.
No, you were looking for a motion,
You're
but you
looking for
can't
a
do
motion.
it.
You can't make the motion.
Right.
So I
right.
did it.
I was looking for a
I'll
motion.
second it.
Laura
I'll-
seconded
I'll
it.
second it.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any more questions? All those in favor? 4-0, Mary.
Thank you, I'll start on that. And that's really the most important things that I had to
So-
discuss this evening.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just gonna ask, did we move from town administrator's report to old business,
We're starting old business right now.
but we were still on the,
That was still me.
when we took that vote.
Yes, so what we did
Yeah,
is, you'll
'cause-
notice under old business,
Okay.
that highway building, that shouldn't have been there, that was a typo. So the discussion regarding RFP, that should have been under the town.
All right, 'cause
administrator
only
report,
if-
But that's okay. We'll skip by that one.
Just
Goes.
to, well, I mean,
just
just to ask
crossed it
Mike a
off.
question with the RFPs, where it just got brought up with the highway department. Back in July, we were gonna do RFPs on every contracted service that we have in town.
And that's what I was gonna bring up under an old business, that I have put out RFPs in terms, I'm gonna do them one at a time. I put out an RFP, and again, as I mentioned before, in terms of engineering services, you don't have to do anything like that. I could just go out, or the board could tell me to go out and just, pick that particular company, bring them in, and work some sort of a thing out with them. So in terms of what I am doing and what I put out to at least a dozen different engineering firms, with a deadline for the end of this, I put a deadline of December the 29th, I believe, for their responses. Basically, what I'm looking for is for them to give me a proposal in terms of, basically all we're looking for is how much it's gonna cost for a site engineer, a land planner, the different sort of disciplines that you need to bring in with an engineering firm. And included in my inquiries or my invitations to give a proposal is our current engineer. And this isn't really being done because of any dissatisfaction with our current engineer, but as we discussed a few months back or so, it's just good business practice to go out every so often. And as it so happens, I believe that the town has been engaged with the current firm for over 10 years or more. And I actually had a conversation with the representative from the current firm, and he understands completely. It's just good business practice. So once that's completed, because I only want to do one at a time, then I'm going to go on to the two legal, the labor, which we have separated from general counsel. So that is proceeding.
Great.
And I'll come back to the board with my findings. Again, we're not governed by any of the 30B regulations, because with either the legal services or the engineering services, so we can kind of modify the process as the town sees fit. And one of the reasons that it's taken a little longer than I would have liked to is I've talked to different towns as to how they've done it. Because I'm the first one to admit it, I'll plagiarize anything that's, public information, and I'll take lessons learned, good and bad, from other towns. So I was compiling, amongst all the other things that we do on a day-to-day basis, that information. And so that has gone out, the request for engineering proposals for what I've called on-call engineering, which, suddenly we've got something we decide to do, like we're doing right now, the septic up at the camp, the parking lot over the fire station that the chief just mentioned. What's the other thing? Oh, well, all the stuff we've done up at the hospital. Those are things that we just kind of, I don't want to say fall into, but it's, on an as-needs basis. So, so that information will come back to me. I gave it a timeline to the end of the next month, and we can have a discussion, and I can share my findings with the board. The way that I had put it out is, as the responses come into me, I may very well wish to call them and have further discussions, because as I said, it's not one of those sealed 30B, RFP sort of deals. I can do it any way that I want. And it's actually fairly liberating that I can come and ask these sort of questions that I couldn't ask in the actual procurement procedure that's prescribed by law. So
I think it's healthy to just kind of
yes.
check whether we're getting competitive pricing,
Yes.
competitive services, make sure people aren't taking us for granted.
Yes.
It's a healthy little exercise to go through.
Very much so, very much so. So
Okay.
actually, that's one of the old business items.
All right. So next under old business, discussion and vote on Economic Development Committee.
I believe we talked through that pretty well at the last meeting, which I attended.
Yes.
And as an aside, I wish to thank the board and staff here for being very supportive during a
And you guys read the mission, right?
difficult time that I had. So unfortunately, it pushed some things back a week or so. But I have provided through Mary to the board a mission, which the board had asked me to put together, I indicated that I would do at the last meeting, as well as a motion creating what I believe the board wishes to see in a Economic Development Commission. So I would ask the board to consider the motion as written, and if the board is so, although it probably should wait till we have a full committee, but the board certainly at the next meeting can choose to assign a member of the Board of Selectmen to sit on this committee. I've shared this information with the assistant to the planning board, who has given that information to the planning board, because as you're well aware, we wish to have a member of that board on this commission as well. So hopefully we'll get something up and running. I think, as Laura mentioned at one point, we've got an awful lot of openings. We've got an awful lot of people that we're looking to step up and help us out and volunteer. Hopefully we will be able to staff this commission. One of my pet peeves is when commissions are created and they really don't go anywhere. But there's only so much you can do. I mean, people are busy these days. They've got businesses. I mean, they've got jobs and lives and children, and we're really very thankful, very appreciative of any time we can get from any member of the citizenry. And so hopefully, again, this is an important commission. I think that one of the goals that I have, and I think this Board of Selectmen has, is to try to enhance the businesses here in town for a number of different reasons. And to be quite candid, one of the main reasons is to try to offset the tax burden on the residents, and we do so by redevelopment and by inviting new businesses in, enticing new businesses to come in. So, and this is what that commission will hopefully help move forward.
So I make a motion, I move to create an ad hoc economic development commission appointed by the Board of Selectmen to 3-year staggered terms to be comprised of the following members: 1 member of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member of the Planning Board, 1 member of the Hanson Business Community, and 2 members of the public at large. The town administrator shall serve as an ex officio non-voting member who may at his discretion designate other members of the professional staff to assist the commission as needed.
Second.
So the motion's made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you.
So is there anybody here that
Yes.
wants to volunteer on being?
Me.
So I'm looking for a motion to appoint Ms. Fitzgerald to the new Economic Development Commission.
Second.
No,
No, you're making the motion.
No.
He's looking for the motion.
I'm
You're
looking for
making the
mo-
motion.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so
You can
the,
vote for yourself. That's not a conflict.
But I was just gonna say, we're down to 3. How are we gonna do this?
made,
She just
the motion made, and I believe it was seconded.
by
Um,
Jim.
Any questions?
No.
All those in favor? It's 3-0, Mary.
Will that count?
Thank you, Laura. Yes, that'll count.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm actually very excited
you,
about
thank
this. I know you guys can't believe it, but I am.
Okay, thank you.
No, especially with your work with Josh with the business network and
Yeah.
all that will just kind of tie in. Okay, so now this one I'm gonna need a little guidance. Old business, update on Plymouth County Hospital survey results.
Actually, this is fairly simple, Mr. Chairman. I had sent through Mary, I believe that you all have copies of the tallies of the survey that we had put out for potential reuse of the hospital property. As the board will recall, we made these surveys available at the special town meeting back in October. In addition, we had them available here at Town Hall, the Council on Aging, the library. They were also online. Mary was kind enough to put them online for us. And I also had them at the customer service desk at Shaw's. And I followed up with Shaw's within the last day or so, and they indicated that several people did take them. And
That's great.
so,
That's
you know,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that
looking for as much outreach as we could. So you have in front of you, and I won't go so far as to read all the results to you. You can review them yourself. But I will say that the results of this are rather overwhelmingly in terms of support of, indeed, the municipal park. In addition to that, there was even more support by one vote, or one response for recreational trail access. So I think that what this does, at least at minimum, is it reaffirms what happened at town meeting by bringing in the thoughts and the opinions of people that weren't necessarily at town meeting.
Yep.
So again, you can review this. There were, there was considerable support for looking at a solar array as well, somewhere in the mix of what we do with the property going forward, and then scattering support for everything else that we've put in there. I will note that there were several comments. We didn't necessarily have this as one of the options, but there were several written comments in terms of senior housing needs. We're not necessarily, and I'm not necessarily sure that this particular property avails itself of creating senior housing. It's something certainly, and that's why we ask for these surveys, it's something certainly that the Reuse Commission will look at. However, I think at a minimum what this should say to us, and again, it's a very small sampling size, but we do still pay attention to all of this, that we should look at in the not-too-distant future any opportunities we have in terms of augmenting senior housing or affordable housing. So I think that this particular survey is valuable for that reason as well.
I think this is great. I mean, it tells us what we thought we already knew.
Yeah.
But it's good to get confirmation at town meeting and here, and I'm sure it feels good to the Plymouth County Hospital guys to know that they're trucking along the right road there, and
What's this water tower expansion?
10 people were looking for a water tower expansion up there.
All right, but they say do not support. It's
That's
down
two
to
people. Two people say they wouldn't
Yeah.
support it.
That's only two.
they may be abutters.
Well,
I'm just joking, I really don't.
And that's
No, that's possible. They don't want to look at a water tower.
It's true.
If that's in opposition, Don, to the vast majority of people, either with a high or a medium degree of support for it. So I think the two that do not support are they're offset by those that indicate that they have a.
well, you don't know where they're from, so you can't really say.
No.
Mr. Clemens knows.
As a member of the Reuse Committee, Mr. Howard's chair, obviously, what we felt and still feel is we're looking for everything, including this, that would increase confidence on the part of the Board of Selectmen and people and residents in general, that what's been recommended by the committee, in fact, is a pretty good recommendation. And before anything formal gets done, like, let's say you go to the town to spend money on something, you've just gained that much more confidence.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I looked at that and I said, well, if you take the strong and sort of recommend and compare that to the low or don't recommend, you can weight the opinion, and it helps the committee, and we'll be talking about this tomorrow, I'm sure, Mr. Howard. It just gives us confidence that the priorities should stay the priorities, and one thing at a time, we'll keep trying.
It won't take much land anyway.
I think the question that I would ask, though, is on the sale of the properties, which are adjacent, the one on Pierce Ave, and Phil, the way you just explained it, 14 people are either high or medium on selling the Pierce Ave property, but there's 16 that aren't.
Yeah, I think.
Under this comments, there's no comments. What would those 16 people want us to do with that property?
Maybe keep it as open space, have the town keep it, not sell it.
It's possible, that maybe those comments didn't make way to the summary, but again, you gave your best shot at this point. Some of the sales, like for example, at least 3 years ago, town meeting already did approve the sale of the superintendent's house. This other piece on Pierce Avenue is probably the least developed of all possible recommendations. I mean, we thought we'd at least put it on the radar, but our committee hasn't made any formal recommendations about that, right, Mr. Howard? We just wanted to start discussion and what have you. The things, though, that are highly recommended, those actually, the one at the top, actually is the thing we're focused on the most right now. But again, one thing at a time. If we tried to answer every question at once, we'd be right back, another 17 years.
Let's go on and say this too, Phil. All right, it's a 200, and what is it, 254 feet across the front of Pierce Avenue?
49, yep.
249, all right. So that the Bay Circuit Trail do come up through that area someplace. And we talked about this at the meetings, that you could sell a lot, and you would have a lot equal to the amount of the other lots that are on Pierce Avenue, but you could still save 50 feet of that off of Pierce Avenue to still have the Bay Circuit Trail go into the Plymouth County Hospital area. So it's not cutting off anything, but yet it's giving a little income for whomever wants to try to do something that they can use to develop the Plymouth County Hospital area. That's why we've discussed it, correct, Bill?
Right, again, not finalized, but.
But, you know, it wasn't, but we've
all those
talked
options
about it.
You discussed,
Right,
have been discussed, and now the public is chiming in a little bit.
right.
And
Well,
I
it's
think-
good to have the public
Aren't
talk.
we planning on selling the superintendent's building? It's just a matter of the
That's already
fire,
been
the water
Yeah.
tower and all
Right.
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it actually, as recently as today, we were double checking where we had, because we had played with the idea of asking town meeting for the money to do the appraisal, but it was such a low amount that we decided at that point we had it somewhere within the budget that we could put our hands onto, and Mary and I and Todd discussed it just today in terms
Okay,
of
good,
where
thank
to
you.
put, where to get that money in, appropriately and move forward. So it's, actually, that was one of the small
Well, it's
things
not
I was gonna
costing
mention during my
taxpayers
report,
any
that
money.
we'll move
Yeah.
forward on that. But to Selectman Hickey's observation in terms of the comments, other than the comments about senior housing needs, there were very few comments in the blocks. And this is basically, you're looking at the survey tallied up, but in terms of what was written for comments against all of these, there was practically nothing. However, obviously, I've got the raw data, I've got the raw surveys, and anyone, if they're so inclined, that wishes to look at them, certainly I'll make them available. Maybe I'll, in the next couple of days or so, we have a minute, I'll scan them and just send them out to you, and you can look at the raw data. But this is just, a tally of the I say the votes, but the indications that we got.
You got
as a
45 people
summary.
respond, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and actually, oddly enough, if you count across, not all of these totals will add up to the same amount.
Right.
Some people didn't
Right.
vote, didn't
Right.
indicate on some
Yeah.
lines, so
It's like a
the
main
numbers look
ballot.
a little screwy, so.
It's the same way.
Yeah, there's some are bullet votes.
So, okay, good. So we're gonna move on, old business. The discussion regarding the town planner, conservation agent position, we're gonna table that until the next meeting, okay?
Well, I can say at least, Mr. Chairman, just to give the board a quick update.
Okay.
I would like to at least say something very quickly on this. Obviously, you moved on the conservation agent at the meeting that I was unfortunately unable to attend, and I thank you for doing that. That's going to solve at least a short-term problem. And I see the chairman of that particular committee nodding.
Conservation, thank you as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did want to
He's a
let...
guy, I like him.
I did want to let the board know that, as I had indicated at a past meeting, there were some ongoing discussions with an adjacent community in terms of trying to do something cooperatively with both of those positions, which has kind of fallen by the wayside. It's still an option, but the feedback that I'm getting from the planning board, to include a couple of conversations, very recent conversations I had with the chairman of that board, it's getting to the point where they need somebody in that position, and I don't think we can afford to spend too much more time hoping that we can do something in combination with another community. So what I have done, I've already reached out and spoken to some individuals who have planning experience, to the point where I actually had a sit-down conversation with someone yesterday who I think is fairly well qualified to fill that position in at least a part-time temporary situation until we can decide how we want to move forward, whether we want to make that a full-time position, whether it warrants being a full-time position, whether we can get the budgeting for the full-time position. But again, like with the town planner, with the conservation agent, like with the IT contract that we have right now, there are some short-term needs that need to be addressed, and I'm moving forward and trying to put something together and making at least a couple of recommendations to the chairman of the planning board to bring back to his board to try to move and get somebody in that position sooner than later. So I'll update the board on that. More so next week as I continue to have these conversations with individuals, and I'm still trying to have a couple of additional conversations with the chairman of the planning board. There are a bunch of, obviously, moving parts that need to be figured out, not only between that board, but also the department. So suffice to say, I've moved away from my initial thoughts of doing something cooperatively, and we've got to address our own needs at this point, and so I'm moving very quickly on that.
Okay, and is it possible at our December 5th meeting, when you give an update on that you could talk to us about any other open positions, AKA recreation-type positions and that type of stuff, where
Yep.
we stand on that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the deadline to respond to the, actually, the recreation director position, I believe it's at the end of this month. And I actually was also going to touch upon the fact that we have only one person who has expressed interest in the open part-time veteran agent position, in the hopes of trying to solicit more interest. I've reached out to the statewide organization to see if there's anyone they're aware of. I think one of the problems that we're going to have, actually it was one of the things I was thinking about in terms of trying to combine it with the town of Hanover, is the fact that it is a part-time position, and of course commands only part-time monies. And a lot of the people that had kind of back and forth unofficial conversations would have been interested in something full-time, whether that be full-time in Hanson or shared between the towns. But of course, the town of Hanson does not have the funds for a full-time position, nor is it required. So I'll keep you abreast of that, and I can give you an update at the next meeting on that as an open position as well. And that's just like the town planner position, it's an extremely specific sort of position. You just don't put an ad in the Express and then take all comers and sit down with them. You have to have a plethora of specialized experience to do these sorts of things, whether it be a town planner, whether it be a conservation agent, or whether it be a veterans agent. And it's just, there aren't a lot of people out there, and the people that are out there are in demand. So we'll sally forth, and I do have a fallback position if need be for the veterans agent, but which we can discuss if we need to in the future. But yes, but certainly.
Okay, so we'll bring that up.
Yep, and that's well, I guess that wasn't part of my report, but that's that one.
Okay, so did you guys get a chance to review the minutes for November 14th, the last meeting?
Yep. I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 14th, 2017.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So we got 301, Mary.
Right.
Okay, liquor licenses. Gail Fusco Hanson for Saturday, December 2nd, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. for a family Christmas party. I also have Sarah Sherrington and Joe King Hanson, Sunday, December 10th, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for a family Christmas party. Looking for a motion to approve liquor license.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Contracts on these yet.
4-0.
I think you would sign those, right?
What is?
I know, I saw the one for, did you see the
What was the
contract
question?
for these?
I'm sorry, I should
Yeah.
ask if you had any questions before we voted.
The system is where they come up to town hall, because they can't have a liquor license unless the function is paid in full.
Right,
Okay.
So I just like to double check.
making sure that system is operational and
Yeah.
working.
It's a good question.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm sure Mary does that automatically, or
No,
somebody does?
I don't. I did,
You
the
don't?
question came up from someone else that they send me the information, these are the functions that are going forward. I get the liquor licenses well in advance when people apply to use it. So I get I probably had these, actually the second one I just got. But Gail Fusco's came in probably in the middle of the summer. Could have even come in last year.
Right.
She books it. I put it in, and I have a folder, and I keep all the functions. I have functions through 2019 that as I come up to the month before, these are the liquor licenses I have, I put them on. I send my list down to Lon and say, these are the people that I have. Am I missing anybody? Do we have anybody? That some people will cancel or they postpone to a different date. So we share it up. I don't ask her if they've been paid. I mean, that's not our end.
Right.
That's on the end of, the Recreation Commission. They ought to make sure that everybody's paid before we're letting people use the facility.
Right, but I think to Jim's point, like, I'd like a statement from them saying,
It's all paid. I
It's
mean,
paid.
we can do that. When I do the process with Lon each time, I can say, can you check and let me know that, have they
Yeah.
paid? Are they up to
Yeah.
date?
I think that would be good.
I can add that
Or
to
Mike
that.
can talk to the Recreation Commission and have them just make sure. That's a good,
Yeah, we
that's a
can.
valid point.
Yeah, we can
Because
make
one
sure
could
that
slip
that's-
by and they could be
place.
in 2 weeks having their Christmas party and, hey, they still owe us $500.
Correct. So I can, Lon and I can do that as our means of communication.
Right, okay, good, excellent. Does that
But
work
if they
for you?
still, if they still,
I'm good then.
but if they still owed $500, regardless of whether they had a liquor license or not, we wouldn't allow that function to
The function
proceed.
to happen.
But no,
Right,
it's
but
something,
right
it's
now,
something we
we
can,
may not know.
oh, yeah, you
The
may
way-
not know.
The way that it's going now.
You may not know. Yes, I agree.
Because the system hasn't changed, even though the steps have been put in place
Right.
for
Yeah,
the
we
system.
can make sure that we can double check on that. That's not a big deal.
Okay, committee reports.
So did we do the vote on that? I think we got.
Yes, we
it
did.
was a
4-0.
vote? Okay.
Mont Ponce Pond Committee,
Haven't
Mr.
heard,
Howard.
but I do know there is a little cyanobacteria still in it. Brockton, I assume, can take water anyway between now and May. And I assume they're taking it, but I haven't heard anything from them.
Any update on the final Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee? That one's a little long. I thought we cut that
We'll
down.
have a meeting tomorrow night, our afternoon at 4 o'clock, right here. Anybody interested?
So that's tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Tomorrow is Wednesday, the 29th, right?
Yep.
Macon School Reuse Committee.
We are meeting this Thursday, and we are
Thursday.
wildly excited to be doing so. And we will be doing a walkthrough with Mr. Ernest Sandlin, and the members of the committee, and we will report back and let you know what we've found. All and everyone is welcome to attend. Mike, does that kick off at 6:15?
6:30, I believe.
Okay,
but I don't
6:30.
think it's a bad
I actually
idea.
have a question for you.
But people
On
would get there
Thursday
at 6:15.
McQuon.
So we had a Parks and Fields meeting last Monday, and there was a couple of groups that came to us talking about how they don't have enough room. They're running out of field usage. It was football and it was lacrosse, and they asked us about doing maybe possibly fields over there. Maybe a combination of CPC and some other stuff. Where should I direct them to go to your committee when you get going?
Yes. All and everything will be looked at. We are going to be looking at, can that existing building be used for any other purpose without an extraordinary expenditure of money?
Right, okay.
And if that is not the case, then what can that piece of land be used for? Can we sell the building? We'll be looking at all of these different things, so.
Or
we-
possibly tearing it down if Plan A and Plan B
Possibly,
don't.
so we would clearly be entertaining.
Right,
Could we
okay.
put fields there? That would be one of the options that we'd be looking at, so.
Right, okay.
Everything is on the table right now, we're not.
So I'm gonna direct them, do you mind if I give them your email address and I'll have them?
Please, Kenny,
All right, okay.
Yes,
I'm
please
sure you
do.
don't, I'm sure you
Yeah.
don't get enough emails.
please direct them in my way. No,
Okay.
we would love to hear from them, but that, just keep in mind, that is something we're thinking about. I know that that's a need, people have expressed that.
Right,
so,
okay,
yeah.
good, excellent. Okay, Hanson School Repair Committee,
Nothing new to report, Mr. Chairman.
nothing to report. Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Hanson Building Committee, I don't have anything to report.
Highway Building
Motion to
Committee.
adjourn.
Yeah.
Well, wait.
No, wait.
Wait, listen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I always
Dawn,
get short shrift on this
I'm
200th
sorry, that's my
anniversary.
bad. I meant to put you first. I
I
meant to put you
know.
first next
These
meeting.
guys hustle me every
And
time
that was
at the
Highway
end of the
Building
meeting.
Committee, Mary, I apologize. And Mr. Howard, we're not done yet, okay,
Oh,
sir?
we ain't done.
I really didn't have anything to report anyway on the 200. But we're meeting on Thursday, and we'll be welcoming our 2 new members. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm done, that's
Somebody
it.
else do it.
Does
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, go ahead.
Seconded.
Didn't say that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Does anybody else have any other business before this board this evening? I want to thank Carol for recording the video.
I want to talk
Thank
to you, Phil.
Tracy for attending the
I have to
meeting.
apologize to you.
Stay the whole time.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.